Hi, welcome to Session 6. In this session, we're going to talk about minor seventh chords and suspended chords. They have a little bit more color in them than the basic chords that we've been talking about so far, but they still are open chords that involve open strings. We're also going to talk about strumming, and strumming with ties, which gets a little bit more complicated, but sure makes it sound a little bit more musically interesting when we do it. In the guitar tips section, we're going to talk about practicing strumming patterns without music. We'll work with music here, but I also want to talk about doing it without music because that's the kind of situations that you're going to be in when you're trying to play with friends or in a group situation like that. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, now let's talk about the minor seventh chords. There's 3 minor seventh chords we're going to cover in this section. A minor seventh, D minor seventh, and E minor seventh. Abbreviated A, little m, 7. The little m and the 7 is telling you it's a minor seventh chord. So let's look at that A minor seventh chord first. Okay, it's a 5-string chord. Everything in the A family is going to be a 5-string chord. So there's nothing happening on that 6th string. We have open A, second finger on that E, open G, first finger C, and open E. Let's play it all together. Kind of like a C chord if you take your 3rd finger off. It's pretty much the same thing. Now let's talk about D minor 7th. This one is a little bit different from the others. It's a 4-string chord. All the Ds are 4-string chord. So let's look what's happening here. We've got open D. I've got my 2nd finger on this A, and here's the problem right here. I need to put my 1st finger, he needs to cover 2 strings at once. He needs to pull double duty. I've got an F, and I've also got a C that I need to cover. Now, I guess I could really do that, but that's not really the right way to do it. Put your 2nd finger on that A, and then I want you to put your 1st finger down over both of those strings. Now, we're in the baby pool of bar chords. This is the introduction to bar chords. Let me show you let me talk about this for a second because it's a pretty big concept. What you don't want to do is raise this wrist up because it's hard to push down those 2 strings. You raise that wrist up, you crank this up here, and you end up doing something like this. Now, it may work a little bit, but when we get to more complex bar chords, you'll see that that is not going to work for you very well at all. So here's what you need to do. Lower that wrist, put your finger out. Your joint will go in, but it will also go a little bit inverted. Not very much, but it'll go a little bit inverted. It's the inverted, how the muscles are there is how you do these bar chords, especially these little ones like that. Get your finger over those 2 strings, kind of invert that. That's a good way to get a lot of pressure focused into one spot. If you try and do it by just raising your wrist and pulling your finger back, it's not a very efficient way to do it. Put that wrist down, put that finger in front, pressing down, inverting that 1st finger, catching that. Now try and add that A to it. So now look what I've got going. I've got one joint that's going normal, one that's going inverted. I'm doing 2 different things with 2 different joints. It's a little bit tricky to do it first. But that's a D minor 7th. Once you do it a couple times, you'll get the hang of it. Okay? The last one is an E minor 7th we're going to talk about. E's, family of E chords, 6 strings. Okay? It's 2 different fingerings we can use, 2 different alternate fingerings on this. Let me teach you the first one. This is the one I like, but you don't necessarily have to do it like I do. There's different guys do it different ways. Open E. Now I put my 1st finger on this B. Then I have 2 open strings, a D and a G. Then I have my 3rd finger on this high D, my pinky on this high G. E minor 7th. Now, another way to do that, which I think is a little bit more awkward, it's always been a little bit more awkward to me, but a lot of guys use it, is an open E, second finger up here on this B, third finger on this E, G, pinky covering the D, and the last string open. Now you'll notice the finger is completely different for this one. How can it be the same chord? Well, chord is just a combination of tones. No matter how many ways I slice them, they're still chords. They're still the same chord, so it doesn't matter really what order I have the notes in. So here's version 1. There's version 2. Either way you can use is fine. Whatever leans better with your hand. Let's do some of the minor chord exercises. Okay? Basic open chord exercises using minor 7ths. Look at number 1 there. We have A minor, and then we're going to go to A minor 7th. The rhythms, you'll notice, are getting a little bit more complex as well. Let's do it real slowly. Ready? Go. A minor 7th. Now, take that third finger off. D 7th now. And then 3 G's in a row. How'd you do? Let's try it one more time. Ready? Play. Third finger off. D 7th. 3 G's in a row. Okay, now let's do exercise number 2. This one starts on a D, and this gives us a good workout on that E minor 7th chord. Okay? Starts on a D. Nice and slow. Ready? Play. E minor 7th. Take a second to get to it. Either form you want to use is fine. A minor 7th. D. G. Very good. Let's try it one more time. D. E minor 7th. D. 1, 2, G. Great. Okay. Now, let's scoot down the page a little bit to number 3. I was going to go down farther, but let's do number 3. That gives us a good workout on the D minor 7th. Okay, pretty simple rhythm. It's the same rhythm for all the 4 measures. Let's start on that C. Ready? Go. 1, 2. Same thing. Now here's that D minor 7th. Make sure you form it correctly. Inverting that first finger. Here we go. 4-string chord. Back to C, repeat. D minor 7th, go. Very good. Okay, before we talk about suspended chords, we need to talk about strumming for a second, because we're going to get, as we're getting more complex with our rhythms, their strumming is going to have to change a little bit as well. Let's talk about good technique for strumming. Now, at this point, we've pretty much just been going down, 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 down. When we need to do an up, there'll be a bunch of them in a row, and we'll go down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Even when you were doing just downs, your hand is still doing a silent up, if you think about it. Okay? So your hand is always doing this cycle. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It's kind of like a piston in a car. It's always going down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Okay? So when I'm practicing this strumming, Now that we're going to get a little bit more complex, be thinking of that. So you don't want to go down, 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 down. That would be wrong. Down, down, up, down, down. If you want good smooth strumming, see how if I do all downs, it sounds a little bit different. And as we get more and more complex, it's going to really start throwing you off. So you got to make sure you understand what we're doing. I'm never going to tell you to be up when you're in the cycle to be a down, or the opposite. It may be a little confusing at first, but pretty soon you'll realize that that's really the only way you could do it if you keep that cycle consistent. Okay? That's about strumming. Now let's talk about adding ties.